My brothers and sisters in Christ, in this Sunday's Gospel, a man has an encounter with Jesus that changes him forever. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now a man there named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was. But he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." And he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they all saw this, they began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor. And if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a descendant of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what was lost." The Gospel of the Lord. I was so excited to see children enjoying our new playground last week. After Mass, I went outside to greet them and noticed one young 4-year-old boy quickly climbing the stairs to the top. As soon as he got to the top, he paused, took in the view, and shouted suddenly, "Ah!" It was as if he saw the world from a very different perspective for the very first time. Never before had he been so high up. It changed him for the better. He reminded me of Zacchaeus, whom we encounter in today's Gospel. There are 2 important things to know about him. Zacchaeus was a tax collector, and like the boy climbing the playground staircase, he wasn't very tall. Tax collectors were hated by their neighbors. They were seen as greedy, ambitious thieves who extorted pennies from the penniless. In fact, they did. No wonder the crowds tried blocking Zacchaeus from seeing Jesus. Zacchaeus' size was also metaphorical. In addition to being short, he was also a man of little faith. Caught in a greedy profession, he was focused on worldly things, preventing him from seeing the bigger picture. But something was stirred inside of him that day. I wonder what it was. Was Zacchaeus lonely? Jesus was a friend, he heard, of tax collectors and sinners. Was he soul-searching? As Bono says, "I still haven't found what I'm looking for." Or maybe Zacchaeus finally realized that ultimately no material thing can satisfy hungry human hearts. We need the intangibles in life to be complete. Things like faith, hope, and love. The Gospel tells us that Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus. This verb to see doesn't mean just looking at Jesus. It means more than physical sight. It implies a person's journey to faith. Zacchaeus wanted to see God. So he sprints ahead of the crowds and climbs up a sycamore tree, allowing him to see beyond the crowds, beyond the people blocking him from Jesus, beyond his own greed, beyond the busyness of his daily life, beyond his material possessions. Clinging anxiously to those shady branches, Zacchaeus represents a soul seeking more. He represents a soul at prayer, a soul in search of God. It was a moment of discovery. Suddenly that desire stirring deep within him started to be satisfied. But the Lord would not allow Zacchaeus to remain in that tree. Seeing Jesus was only part of faith's equation. The other part is doing something about it. Zacchaeus, come down from that tree. I intend to stay at your house today, Jesus says. The fact that Zacchaeus welcomes Jesus into his home implies that he not only makes room physically, but spiritually he welcomes Jesus into his heart. By the end, Zacchaeus declares, Lord, if I have wronged anyone, I will repay it 4 times over. Filled with remorse for his sins, he promises to repay all of his neighbors whom he extorted for years. Imagine him knocking on their doors the next day, a changed man, not only seeking to restore what he stole, but also to repair the relationships he ruined. Zacchaeus reminds us that faith always comes at a cost. It's not enough to see, to encounter Jesus. We must also be changed by that encounter. This is, after all, every person's journey of faith. It begins with our desire to see Jesus, followed by the realization that we cannot see him when blocked by the crowds, by certain people who distance us from God. We can't see him when we're blinded by the busyness or the burdens of daily life. We have to climb a sycamore tree. What is my sycamore tree? Where do I go to discover the Lord? Perhaps it's the hour we spend each week going to Mass, walking into church, not like it's a grocery store or a mall, but as if God is going to speak and say something to us that day. Maybe our sycamore tree is a few minutes we spend reading a daily devotional or having a faith-based conversation with a friend. Maybe our sycamore tree is the healing we find in confession after having not gone for a while. This is the first part of the equation, encountering Jesus. The other part is being changed by that encounter. How is my faith changing me? Think of that jovial look on the little boy's face who climbed the stairs on our new playground. He saw the world from a different perspective. It filled him with joy. It changed him. He was a type of sycamore tree. May we have a similar experience with Jesus, taking the time to climb to a higher place, to see him, and to come back down changed for the better.